What is happening, baby? Welcome back to the Huddle Chat Sports Network's very own Fantasy Football Huddle, presented to you by DanklyfeBrand and yours truly, Dallas Clark, the host, as always, on the Huddle Chat Sports Network. Today, we're talking about quarterbacks that are being slept on, that you should wake up on before your drafts because they have the potential to far exceed their ADP. I feel like the quarterback position is one of the most highly questioned and hardest to judge positions going into your fantasy football drafts of 2024. Of the past few years, it's kind of seemed as if having a more consistent quarterback is the smarter choice than choosing the elite quarterback. So how do you truly judge quarterback? I even have a comment that we're going to be getting into today that's going to discuss where I'm drafting quarterbacks. So make sure you stay in tune for that. But like I said, we're talking about those sleeper quarterbacks you need to wake up on. And without further ado, it's time to fill up your cup, roll something up, and get right into the sleeper quarterbacks. Now, when it comes to a sleeper quarterback, we definitely are targeting somebody that lands outside of an ADP of 120. Trevor Lawrence right now is the quarterback closest to the ADP of 120, so that's going to be our cutoff as far as the ECR, the expert consensus ranking, is concerned. So I'm going to be talking about three quarterbacks today that have the potential to far exceed their current ADP and become even top 12 scorers this year. When you look at 2023, 5 of the top 12 quarterbacks in the 2023 season were drafted outside of the start of the 10th round. So you're looking at 5 of those top 12, almost half of those top 12 quarterbacks last season being drafted as sleeper quarterbacks that we're talking about today. So who those quarterbacks going to be that we're looking at? Who is going to be this year's Brock Purdy, this year's Joe Flacco, this year's CJ Stroud? My first quarterback I want to talk about is going to be Geno Smith from the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, Geno Smith was not great by any sense of the word last year. But however, you look at the fact that it was not a clean season at all last year. Seattle as a whole struggled. You're looking at him being under pressure 41% of the time. He had a league low plays per game. He even lost 4 touchdowns to defensive pass interference last season. You're looking at him in this season, though, having a new offensive staff, new coaching staff. You're looking at him also still having great playmakers around him. You're looking at Noah Fant. You're looking at DK Metcalf. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Is he the athlete that we were always promised he was coming out of the draft? Let's find out. And I think this year it's going to be hard for them to replicate how bad they were this year. And things are trending in the right direction for Geno Smith. The skills from 2022 are there. We really just need the Seahawks to get their act together. Because right now, Geno Smith at an ADP of 171 at quarterback 23, I definitely think this is the year he can replicate that production from 2022. Before moving on into the rest of the quarterbacks that are being slept on, I want to talk about Dylan O'Shea 1864's comment on one of my previous videos. He asks, can you take us through where you typically draft quarterbacks, tight ends, kickers, and defenses? I do kickers as last, defenses as second to last typically, and I never draft quarterbacks well, honestly. And to be honest with you, Dylan, we're going to be talking about your comment throughout the next couple of videos because today we're talking about quarterbacks. I got a tight end, a defense, kicker, all of those episodes coming down the line. So make sure you stay tuned for those. And just like everybody else, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscriptions bar, which I know you already have. But if anybody else hasn't, hit that subscriptions bar as well as that notifications bell. However, we're going to be talking about the quarterback portion of your comment today because that's the meat and potatoes of your comment. And we're talking about those sleeper quarterbacks. Typically, I like to identify 1 to 2 quarterbacks that I consider elite potential quarterbacks. Quarterbacks that aren't inside that top 5 quarterbacks that are probably at the end of the 3rd round and before the beginning of the 8th round. Kind of in that sweet spot where whether you're going hero running back, 0 running back, 0 wide receiver, whatever your first 5-round draft strategy is, that's kind of where you hit that natural pausing point of, do I take that tight end? Do I take that quarterback? And that's where I really want to start looking at quarterbacks. I don't want to look at a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen. I'm trying to eye somebody like quarterback 10 right now, Kyler Murray. Somebody that I think has the potential to crack that top 5 and maybe even take a swing at that top 3 potential fantasy football quarterbacks this season. They're not being drafted outside of the top 5 because they're not good, just because they're not as good as Patrick Mahomes or Lamar or the quarterbacks that everybody's in love with and are going to spend those early, really expensive picks on. Now, like I said, I like to identify 1 to 2 quarterbacks in that range, and if my quarterback can fall to me in that range, then I will take that quarterback in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. Normally about the 5th round is where I really start considering quarterbacks, depending on the draft I'm in. I really like to stay flexible in my fantasy football drafts because I don't want to lock in on 1 or 2 players. And if those players aren't available to me or they get taken way earlier than anybody was expecting, it throws me off. So you have to stay flexible. So if I don't get one of those 2 quarterbacks that I was just talking about, then I'm kind of having to put myself in a more serious mode when it comes to the quarterback position. Now I'm not going to be able to take a rest. I'm going to have to really start to lock down and say, what is the best quarterbacks available? That's when I'm starting to look at those Jared Goffs. I'm starting to look outside of that top 10, top 12 quarterbacks to really get somebody I'm comfortable with. If I have to put Brock Purdy in my starting lineup week 1, that's not a very upsetting choice. You really want to feel comfortable going into your week 1 starting lineup and not have to make any choices. So it's very imperative you get at least a quarterback you're comfortable with before the end of the 9th round. Now, depending on whether I got the elite level quarterback or the quarterback that I'm comfortable with is going to decide the backup quarterback that I'm going to grab, because I like to get 2 quarterbacks if I can. The second quarterback is going to be either a depth piece, which everybody knows we need in fantasy football, or it's going to be trade value for that person that had the Aaron Rodgers issue last year in 2023, and you have a potential top 15 quarterback sitting on your bench. You now have a big piece that you can offer them that's not costing you much, but it's going to cost them a lot to get off your bench. Now, hopefully I answered your question well there, Dylan. And as I said, we're going to be discussing the other portions of your comment in future episodes as well. But moving on into our last few sleeper quarterbacks that are being too slept on right now, Justin Herbert. And I felt you just roll your eyes just now. Just chill out for 1 second. I feel like no matter what you hear, first things first, no matter what you hear, Justin Herbert is a good quarterback. His first 2 seasons, quarterback 8 and quarterback 2 in fantasy points per game. The Chargers have been poorly coached, and Justin Herbert has been poorly protected. And Harbaugh is a winning football coach, no matter how you slice it. Now, the volume does not have to be the same as it's been for Justin Herbert for him to have elite level production. What is really going to change is you look at him losing Austin Eckler, Big Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, the aging playmakers that only had a few more of their really elite years left, if that. They traded that trio that's been tied to Justin Herbert for his entire career for an elite level offensive line, which may end up as the best offensive line when all is said and done at the end of this year. And when you look at Justin Herbert, when he was being protected and able to stay inside the pocket, he had a 15-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So if the production is more efficient at an elite level because the protection is elite, the coaching is elite, the volume does not have to be as high for Justin Herbert, and I'm very comfortable with the coaching and the offensive line that he's going to be behind this year. Now, talking about the last quarterback that's being too slept on is going to be Deshaun Watson, current ADP of 162. Plain and simple fact, Kevin Stefanski is a damn genius play caller. You're looking at Watson being quarterback 5, quarterback 8, quarterback 10, and quarterback 14 in 4 of the 5 healthy games he had last season. He's got legitimate playmakers around him, a legitimate offensive line. You're looking at them adding Jerry Jeudy this offseason, paying David Njoku. They still have Elijah Moore. They still have Amari Cooper. You look at them since the Nick Chubb injury, their offensive line was 4th in pass block win rate last year. They were number 1 in neutral pass rate and number 1 in plays per game in 2024 after that Nick Chubb injury. They used to be a run-centric offense. Now they've become, like everybody else in the NFL for the most part, a pass-heavy, air-it-out type of offense. The environment is so good around Deshaun Watson. It's if we even get close to a shade of what we saw from Deshaun Watson in Houston, it's going to be a problem for the NFL. Look at what Joe Flacco did behind the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Stefanski last year. If Deshaun Watson has a full healthy year this year, there's no question Deshaun Watson can easily crack inside that top 15 at minimum. But that's going to do it for today's Sleeper Quarterback episode. Make sure you stay tuned in and make sure you like that video if you've made it this far, because what do I got to do at this point? But that's going to do it. Make sure you keep your chin up and your attitude down. I'll see you next time. Peace out.